Everybody say amen.
Amen.
What I'm going to be talking about is the Red Sea crossing. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and camp before Pi-hahiroth, before Migdol, shall camp by the sea, for Pharaoh will say, of the children of Israel, they are bewildered by the land. The wilderness has closed them in. Then I will pursue them, and I will gain honor over Egypt, over Pharaoh and over all his army, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord." And they did so. Now it was told the king of Egypt that the people had fled in the heart of Pharaoh, and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, "Why against the people?" And they said, "Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" So he made ready his chariots and took his people with him. Also, he took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt were captains, and every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of the Pharaoh king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with boldness. So the Egyptians pursued them, and all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea beside Pi-hahiroth before Philistine. So what this part of the scripture is talking about is how the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the Israelites out of Egypt so they can have freedom, and turn them against the Egyptians so they wouldn't be worshiping the Egyptians, so they can worship me to know that I am the Lord." And that's what they did. But the Egyptian king heard that his slaves were leaving, so he got mad and said, since they left, they're going down with a consequence. So he got ready because he was going to kill them. That's what they do. So let's find out more then as I'm reading. "And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, 'Because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us to bring us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we have told you in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness.' And Moses said to the people, 'Do not be afraid. Stand still. See the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptian whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace.'" More of this scripture is talking about how the slaves were afraid. They didn't want to die. They'd rather be off getting whipped, hurt, than to die in the wilderness with no grave. But Moses is trying to tell him that he's with God. He's standing firm right by his side. And God will never leave us. He will fight for you, and he will stand with you. The Lord will fight for you, and he shall stand and hold your peace. Doesn't it encourage you to know that God is on your side?
Amen.
Amen.
God fights for you, his children, and you should trust and obey him as always. I had a good friend up here today saying, if you obey your parents, you could live longer.
That's right.
But instead of obeying your parents, if you obey God, your Holy Father, you could go in heaven and go to a better place than earth right now, because there are people killing each other. And the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward, but lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea." And that's what he did. He got his rod, poured it, stabbed it right in the water. And as they noticed, they saw the water floating up, big walls right on the side of them. They could see fish from each side, left to right. And the floor was all dried up. Imagine just seeing a huge wall of water right there in front of you on both sides. Some people are afraid of being close together. I wouldn't say it. Some people are afraid to be close together. I wouldn't. If God's right there, He could take you a long way if you just follow Him.
Yes.
Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all the night and made the sea into dry land. And the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground. And the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, and his chariots, and his horsemen. Now it came to pass in the morning, watch, that the Lord looked down upon the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and He troubled the army of the Egyptians, and He took off their chariot wheels, so that they drove them with difficulty. What this is talking about, I'm just going to make it easier so you guys can know. What this is talking about is that God told Moses to put down his hand and make all of that fall because the Egyptians were following them. So they had to drown them so they wouldn't leave, so the slaves could get to freedom. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians on their chariots and on their horsemen. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and when the morning appeared, the sea returned to its full depth while the Egyptians were fleeing into it. So the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Then the waters returned, and they covered the chariots and horsemen, all the army and Pharaoh that came. Fear of the Lord. What does it mean to fear the Lord? Does it mean to be deadly afraid of God? No. It means that when the people saw God's awesome power, they were filled with wonder at His might. So they got scared that God could kill them because He created the earth, the heavens, and everything in it. So if He could do all that, He could surely kill you. He could take your life. He could bring it back. Imagine I kill you, but I'm sad that I killed you and I want you back. I can't bring you back, but guess who can? God. So I just want to thank you guys for listening to my wonderful preaching.
Let's just say amen.